In this video, we're going to look at what it means to simplify fractions. So let's say we have the fraction 75 over 100, and we're asked to put this fraction in simplest form. And sometimes you'll hear this called reducing fractions, and I don't like that term because the word reduce means that you're making something less in value. And we are not trying to do that when we are simplifying fractions. We're actually trying to keep an equivalent or an equal value. We're just trying to make it the fraction be a less complicated version of itself. So if we think of 75 hundredths as money, we can think of a penny as 1/100th of a dollar. So if we have 75 of those pennies, we have 75 cents. We have a big pile of 75 pennies, but there's a simpler way that we can have that exact same value of money. And when we start simplifying this fraction, we're going to ask ourselves, what's a common factor of both 75 and 100? And one that may come to mind right away is 5, because 75 and 100 both end in either a 5 or a 0. So when we're dividing by 5 over 5 right here, just like with equivalent fractions, we are actually dividing by 1 whole. 5 over 5, 5 divided by 5 equals 1. And when we divide by 1 whole, just like when we multiply by 1 whole, we don't change the value of a number. So I know that I'm okay as long as I'm dividing by a number that is the same in the numerator and in the denominator, which will give me 1 whole. Now I am going to reduce the number of pieces that I have after this division problem, but I'm not going to reduce the value of the actual fraction. So 75 divided by 5 is 15, and now we have 100 divided by 5, which is 20. So I have 15 pieces out of a whole that was split into 20 parts. We can actually now think of this as 15 nickels, because 1 nickel is actually 1/20th of a dollar. It takes 20 nickels to make a dollar. So I have now reduced my pile of money from 75 pieces, 75 pennies, to 15 nickels. I do have fewer coins, but the value of my pile of money is exactly the same. It's still worth 75 cents. But I can actually simplify this even more. So I'm looking for a common factor of 15 and 20, and 5 actually goes into both of those numbers again. So 5 over 5 is still 1 whole, so as long as I divide by 1 whole, I'm not changing the value of my fraction. 15 divided by 5 is 3, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. So these three fractions, 75 hundredths, 15 20ths, 3/4, are what we call equivalent fractions. They're all exactly the same value, but 3/4 is what's called the simplest form of 75 hundredths. It is that simplest way that we can express this value, 75 hundredths, as a fraction using the fewest number of pieces. Again, if you think about it as money, it's the fewest coins that we could use to get exactly the same value as 75 pennies. And let's look at one more example of simplifying fractions, 6 over 48. So this would be like if you had a pizza that was cut into 48 slices and you got 6 of them. That would be kind of a ridiculously complicated way of cutting that pizza up and then doling out slices to each person. So let's see if there's a simpler way that we could do this. So the first step is looking for common factors of 6 and 48. And if you don't immediately see one, look for even numbers. In this case, 6 and 48 are both even, which means 2 is a common factor. So if I divide by 2 over 2, that is 1 whole. I'm not going to change the value of the fraction, so I'm going to get 3 over 24. And now you always want to keep going until you cannot find any more common factors other than 1 of the numerator and the denominator. So in this case, we do have another common factor that is 3. So we can divide by 3 over 3. That again is 1 whole. And we end up getting 1/8. And now we are in simplest form. Now we could have done this a little bit faster if we had originally divided by 6 over 6, because 6 is a common factor of both 6 and 48. Would have gotten straight to 1 over 8. But we call 1/8 the simplest form of 6 over 48. And if you think about it, cutting a pizza into 8 slices and then giving you 1 is much simpler than cutting it into 48 and giving you 6.